Hey everyone, Tin Man here, and among the many things that Season 1 of Dota Underlords has brought us, we cannot forget about the 10 new items that have been introduced. Well, it's really 9 new ones, but kind of 10. You know what, let's just get to it. First up, the ARMLET of MORDIGGIAN. This Tier 2 item offers a ton of stats, plus 90 attack damage and plus 10 armor. That is insanely powerful, more stats than anything outside of Tier 5 items. Oh, and, there's a little tiny drawback. The equipped unit also loses 100 health per second. Okay, maybe it's a little bit of a bigger drawback. There are 2 types of units that are going to want to use this item. Bloodseeker and Lifestealer can heal themselves up by using their abilities, so they can somewhat offset the downside of the ARMLET. Bloodseeker in particular is great since he attacks so fast when he's low on life, and this item helps him to get low on life total. The other type of unit that wants to use it is a fast attack speed unit, like say Wind Ranger. She'll often be sitting on the backline untouched by enemies, at least initially in the fights, and while it will slowly kill her, this item will also massively increase her damage output. A 2-star Wind Ranger, for instance, has 1,650 HP, so 100 damage per second means that she will survive 17 seconds with this item, which is plenty of time to win a fight using this huge damage boost. Next, Dragonlance, a ranged-only Tier 2 item. This one offers much less stats, only plus 20 attack damage. But instead of a big drawback, this one comes with a nice little upside. It will make your attack range infinite, so no matter where on the board your enemies are, your ranged unit can hit them. This item is great on Luna because it actually increases the bounce range on her glaives to have infinite bounce range. Normally they're just within 2 cells away. Now with this item, it'll be infinite range for that bounce. Since it's kind of an auto attack based effect, meaning that she'll be able to get full value out of that ability no matter how your opponents are positioned. But it doesn't affect the range on any other abilities, so there are some units that it is actively bad on. Units with strict ranges like Razor, Queen of Pain, or Weaver are actually hurt by this item since they may find themselves in situations where they're, say, 4 or 5 squares away from their target, and so they'll never cast their ability since the enemy's not close enough. Overall, I think this is kind of a lackluster item, since I do think it is only really strong on Luna, but to be fair, there are a lot of items that are really strong on Luna, so in its current state, I'm not really looking to pick this one up too terribly often. Quelling Blade, more Tier 2 items. This one grants some bonus attack damage, plus 25, but the real benefit here is the bonus damage against summoned units. This is a strong pickup if there are a lot of summoners running around in the meta, letting your units make short work of those pesky units. And it's at its best with brawny units, specifically your Beastmaster and Bristleback in the early game. The preferential targeting and crit damage makes these units much more likely to rack up kills early on, and letting your brawny build snowball out of control with that bonus health. If you don't have brawnies though, this item is only really good if opponents are playing against lots of summoners, and even then, some of the other options may be better since this item will be relatively weak against non-summoner opponents. Next, my favorite fruit has made it into Dota Underlords, a whole tree of them in fact, the mango tree. This is a Tier 3 contraption that throws out a mango at the start of combat and then every 2 seconds afterwards. The mangoes can go into a random cell up to 2 cells away from the mango tree, and any unit that moves into that cell will eat the mango and gain 100 health and 50 mana. Any unit, even enemies, can come to steal your mangoes. While moving and retargeting, your units will try to move on to the mango that is nearby them as if it were a beneficial square, similar to how knight units try to stick together, and similar to how units try to move next to a Drow Ranger for her attack speed aura. While contraptions do not equip to specific units, this one still pairs best with backline ranged casters like Arc Warden and Venomancer, who benefit dramatically from the increased mana gain from the mangoes. Storm Spirit is another great option since he's constantly zipping around, and so he'll tend to pick up a lot of mangoes for some extra healing and bonus mana. Up in Tier 4, we have KADEN'S Blade. This weapon does not directly increase your damage, rather it changes your damage output. Instead of dealing your normal attack damage, the unit holding this item will deal 7% of the target's maximum HP as pure damage with every attack. This makes it an ideal tank-busting item, heavily punishing warriors, knights, and especially brawnies, who stack up lots of bonus HP. If you're not up against tanky units though, other tier 4 items like Moonshard or Butterfly will tend to give more damage output. Ideally, it's used on high attack speed units like Weaver, Windranger, or even Ogre Magi, but it also works well on Medusa, as each attack of her split shots will deal the 7% pure damage. It does not work with Luna, however. Her glaive bounces are not affected, and they still scale off her normal damage output, so they don't kind of scale off that 7% max pure damage, with Luna, that is. So that's it for the normal items, and now we get a new class of items. And of course, what Valve game would be complete without hats? Yes, the newest subsection of item in Dota Underlords are hats. These items equip just like normal, but they give, rather than give stat bonuses, they give an additional alliance to the equipped unit. First up, OGRE CAP, a tier 1 item that gives the Bloodbound alliance. Now, I know what you're thinking, isn't this the same as Big Time Contract? No, clearly not. Big Time Contract was a contract and it was a piece of paper. This is a cap for an ogre. Two very different items. If you think a contract and a hat are the same item, I don't know what to tell you. What I can tell you is that this item is great to put on any of your big carries. Guys like Dragon Knight or hunters like Windranger and Beastmaster to help them get some early kills in the early game. If you're running a Legion Commander composition, then you can pick this up to make splashing Bloodbound much easier. Legion Commander does not need to hold the Ogre Cap, as just as long as you have the Bloodbound Alliance active, she'll naturally count as a Bloodbound. Although with the changes to Bloodbound in this patch, it's not quite as ridiculous with Legion Commander as Big Time Contract used to be. Next hat, Mantle of the FLAYED twins. This hat will make the unit a Deadeye, so that they will always focus their attacks on the lowest health opposing unit. While melee Deadeye units gain phasing movement, it does kinda stink on most melee units, since they're going to be spending a lot of time walking and not a lot of time attacking. That's why I like it on ranged assassins like Viper, Queen of Pain, and Templar Assassin, who can easily jump to their target and don't mind being up in the thick of combat. Next up, a crown made out of antlers. This is a relatively uncomfortable looking hat that will turn your unit into a hunter. Now, hunter compositions typically try to play 3 or 6 hunters, which is a big portion of your team, and it generally leaves very little room for anything else or any other big alliances. With Crown of Antlers, though, this will allow you to be a lot more flexible, essentially freeing up an extra slot in your hunter composition to fit in an additional alliance. Something like Trolls or Savages sound like really good on paper in combination with hunters, but they typically never had any room to get that many alliances in. Now it may be much more possible to splash those types of effects into a hunter composition. This is best on Savages like Bristleback, who can rack up extra attack damage with the bonus attacks, or units like Lifestealer and Troll Warlord, who have abilities that scale well with extra attacks from being a hunter. And I also think it may be valuable on Templar Assassin if you're looking to splash Void into a hunter composition. Next, whoever said you shouldn't rock a Fedora probably had their legs broken. The Leg Breaker's Fedora is a tier 3 item hat that turns your unit into a brute. It is really convenient that brutes require 2/4 units for their alliance because it becomes very easy to splash brutes when you find this item. More so than splashing the hunters with Crown of Antlers. Crown of Antlers generally goes into already decidedly hunter comp, whereas Legbreaker's Fedora can be better used to splash a new alliance into your build. The best melee units to use this on are Beastmaster and Lycan, who will hopefully survive for a long time in combat since they're your damage dealers, and they get to keep on applying that brute debuff over and over again over a long fight. The other really interesting part about this item is that it can go on ranged units, which doesn't sound that special until you realize that there has never been a ranged brute before. So the ability to apply the brute debuff to even more units at a longer distance is really appealing. Fast attackers like Weaver or just a simple safe backliner like Venomancer are good options for this item. Finally, we come to the last hat, the RISTUL Circlet. This powerful tier 3 hat will turn the equipped hero into a demon. This hat, more than any of the previous ones, I think has the most potential to be completely busted and extremely strong. If you have played with or against damage support Anesix with her Enthrall ability, then you know that turning a unit into a demon is very strong. Units like Bristleback or Weaver who have very short cooldown abilities, so they basically have 100% uptime on the attack damage buff from being a demon. With this item, you don't even need to wait for Enthrall. You can just start dealing insane demon buff damage right from the start of the fight. Other options with short cooldowns include Slarter, who already hits very hard, or Nature's Prophet, who doesn't have that much attack damage, but is typically safer on the backlines for most of the fight. And that does it for all of the new items. I am really excited to see how all the new hats in particular play out. They seem like they will open up a lot of new builds and combinations that are only really possible with these items. I hope that in the future they're going to be adding more hats for other alliances, because I do feel like their options are still a little bit limited. Big thanks to all of my channel members. This channel is supported by its channel members and by viewers like you. So if you like this content and want to help me continue making it, please do consider supporting by clicking on the join button down below or over on Patreon at patreon.com/tinman354. Extra special thanks to my Lord tier channel member, John Vise. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.